In the heart of the world's coldest winter, where the sun hides for months and death rides on the wind, one penguin will risk everything for a single, fragile egg. In the farthest reaches of the southern hemisphere, where winds scream across endless fields of ice and the sun disappears for months at a time, lives one of nature's most extraordinary survivors, the emperor penguin. Unlike most birds, these penguins brave the Antarctic winter, huddling together in tight circles, shifting inch by inch so that every member, even the weakest, gets a moment of warmth. They take turns standing on the edge, shielding others from the wind, and then moving back toward the center to recover. This living wall of feathers and courage allows them to survive temperatures that can plunge below -60 degrees Celsius. But survival is not their only mission. Each pair, mother and father, takes on an almost impossible task: to bring a single egg safely through the winter. While the female journeys to the sea to feed, the male balances the egg on his feet, keeping it off the ice, protected by a warm fold of skin called the brood pouch. For months, he eats nothing. He simply waits, guarding life in its most fragile form. This is where our story begins.
The storm had been howling for 3 endless days, its icy breath cutting through the Antarctic plateau like invisible knives. The wind roared with a voice older than time, rattling the ice cliffs and sending white plumes of snow spiraling into the black sky. Around the base of the frozen ridge, thousands of emperor penguins stood pressed shoulder to shoulder, their black and white bodies swaying in slow, synchronized motions. A living tide, shifting and folding to share warmth. It was a dance older than memory, the only shield they had against the killing cold. At the farthest edge of this great huddle stood one weary male, Kael. He did not care about his own place in the circle, nor about the frost that clung to the tips of his feathers. His entire being was focused on the small, fragile egg balanced carefully on his feet, tucked under the warmth of his belly. Kael's mate had left weeks ago, vanishing into the white horizon to fish. In their kind, it was always the females who braved the distant ocean, while the males stayed to guard the unborn. She should have been back by now. Each day he told himself she would appear tomorrow. And each day, the horizon stayed empty. Hunger gnawed at his hollow belly until it felt like an ache carved into his bones. But the pangs of starvation were nothing compared to the fear that had settled like ice in his chest. Every hour, the storm grew more vicious. Every hour, his strength bled away. On the second night, the wind screamed like a living thing and ripped through the colony with sudden, brutal force. Kael's footing slipped on the glassy ice beneath him. In that heartbeat, the egg, his world, slid from his feet. It tumbled forward, once, twice, toward the jagged teeth of a blue ice ridge. Kael's breath caught in his throat. The world narrowed to that small rolling shell. Without thinking, he broke from the huddle. The wall of warmth vanished behind him, replaced by a crushing cold that pierced to the marrow. The wind hurled snow into his eyes and threatened to knock him off balance. He stumbled, claws scraping across the ice, but he did not stop. Sliding low to the ground, he lunged just in time, his beak brushing the egg as it wobbled on the edge of a ridge. With trembling care, he rolled it back against his chest, tucking it into the warmth beneath his feathers. By the time he returned to the huddle, the others shifted silently to let him in. Penguins had no words for bravery or thanks, but Kael felt their quiet acknowledgement in the way their bodies closed protectively around him, shielding him once again from the storm. The days bled into one another, white and endless. Kael's vision blurred, his head growing heavy. He trembled constantly now, each shiver weaker than the last. But still he stood, cradling the egg. At last, on a day when the wind had fallen to a whisper, the black sky began to pale. A faint glow crept over the horizon, the first hint of returning light after months of darkness. And then he saw her. A lone figure, dark against the shimmering ice. Step by slow step, she approached. Thinner than he remembered, her feathers dulled by salt and wind, but alive. She had made it back. With a low call, she reached him. Her beak brushed his, and then, with infinite gentleness, she slid the egg beneath her own warmth. Kael sagged forward, his legs folding under him, and collapsed into the snow. 2 days later, the egg cracked. A damp, downy chick blinked up at the frozen world, its tiny cry slicing through the still air. Kael stirred, lifting his head to see it. He and his mate bent close, their bodies curving into the smallest huddle in the vast white expanse. Against all odds, life had won. Emperor penguins are the only species to breed during the Antarctic winter, and during the coldest conditions on Earth. Their survival depends on cooperation. The tight huddles they form allow them to conserve warmth and shield each other from deadly winds. By rotating positions, each penguin shares both the burden of the cold and the gift of the warmth within. These remarkable birds remind us that in the harshest environments, it is unity, sacrifice, and shared courage that keep life alive.